Hello, and welcome. I'm a hotel AI expert, and I've spent years deep in modern hospitality operations and performance support. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you, the students of Europe Hotel School, to your online learning journey. We're really looking forward to supporting your growth in this amazing industry. Today, we're going to dive into a tool that is absolutely critical for success: the contract. So, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about why contracts are so much more than just a formality. They're a strategic blueprint. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty and decode the key clauses you'll be working with every single day. After that, we'll look at how contracts help us manage risk. And finally, we'll explore what happens after the signature, because that's when the real work begins. You know, in hotel sales, a great conversation can spark a new relationship, but it's the written contract that truly builds it for the long haul. This is that moment where we shift from good intentions and friendly talk to a structured, professional commitment that everyone can actually count on. And this slide really says it all, doesn't it? Look at that difference. Verbal promises, well, they can be vague, they can lead to really costly misunderstandings, and that just creates risk for everybody involved. A written contract, on the other hand, swaps all that ambiguity for real clarity, real commitment, and, most importantly, real protection for both your hotel and your client. This quote right here really nails the core idea for today. A contract is not just some boring piece of paper for the legal team to file away. No, it's a strategic tool. Its whole purpose is to reduce uncertainty and give you a reliable framework to work within. You should think of it as the roadmap for a successful partnership. Okay, so let's pop the hood and look at the anatomy of these agreements. Understanding these key clauses is absolutely essential for you as sales professionals. This is how you negotiate effectively and build deals that actually work in the real world, not just on paper. First up, rate clauses. This is pretty much the financial heart of the contract, and it's not just about one single price. It's about defining the entire financial structure of the partnership and all the little conditions that come along with it. So for example, does that special corporate rate you negotiated apply only to a standard room, or can they get it on a suite? Does the price change during your peak season? Answering these questions right there in the contract prevents those nasty surprise charges and makes sure the client has a consistent, positive experience with you. Next, we have the validity period. This little clause provides so much certainty for both sides. For the hotel, we know exactly when our inventory is committed. And for the client, they know exactly how long they can rely on those negotiated terms, which is crucial for their own budgeting and planning. Let's be real, plans change. It happens all the time in business. Cancellation terms are that critical piece of the puzzle that manages this reality. It's all about finding that fair balance between giving the client some flexibility while also protecting the hotel from a sudden and painful loss of revenue. The goal here is really just to encourage everyone to plan responsibly. By setting clear deadlines for changes and maybe some graduated fees, the contract makes sure that if a big booking gets canceled at the very last minute, the hotel is fairly compensated for that disruption. It keeps everything predictable. And of course, we have to talk about how we get paid. Having clear payment conditions is just essential. When you define deposit schedules and invoicing rules right up front, you get rid of so many administrative headaches down the line and make sure the cash flow is managed well for everybody. Okay, finally, let's look at something a little more advanced: performance clauses. This is where you get to tie those really great rates to a specific commitment. For instance, a client might get a fantastic rate, but in exchange, they promise to book a minimum number of room nights with you. This makes both sides accountable for making the partnership a success. All right, now let's zoom out a bit and see how all these clauses fit into a bigger strategy of managing risk. The hospitality business is always moving, right? Demand goes up and down, plans get disrupted. A really well-built contract doesn't just react to these things, it actually anticipates them. So what does happen when things don't go according to plan? Well, a good contract already has the answer written down. It gives you a pre-approved game plan to handle these situations calmly, professionally, and fairly. Let's take a classic example: the no-show. A guest just doesn't arrive. That's a direct hit to your revenue. But instead of an argument or confusion, the contract gives you a clear, professional process. The no-show clause kicks in, the agreed-upon charge is applied, and that's it. It's a fair and predictable way to resolve the issue. And that's really the main goal here. These risk clauses aren't meant to be punishments. They're about creating a fair and practical balance. The client gets a reasonable amount of flexibility, and the hotel gets the financial protection it needs to run a stable business. This is exactly why being transparent during negotiations is so important. When you take the time to explain the why behind a clause, why it's there, and how it protects both of you, you completely change the conversation. It stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like you're planning something great together. But a contract's journey doesn't just end when the ink dries. In fact, that's really just the beginning. A signed agreement becomes a living, breathing document that guides your daily operations and helps you make smarter decisions across the entire hotel. Take a look at this. It really shows how contract management is a team sport. Sure, sales negotiates the terms, but you've got revenue management verifying the pricing to make sure it makes sense. You've got operations confirming they can actually deliver on the promises. And after it's signed, everyone has a job to do to make it work. This is why the contract absolutely must be the single source of truth for everyone. Any special favors, any little verbal agreements, they have to be documented in that contract. If they aren't, you're just asking for confusion and inconsistent service when different departments are working off different information. So keeping that partnership strong requires ongoing work. You have to monitor performance, use that data to negotiate even smarter next time, and just keep those lines of communication open. Every contract isn't an endpoint, it's a building block for a long-term, valuable relationship. And at the end of the day, when your clients know they can count on you, because everything is clear, documented, and predictable, you build an incredible amount of trust. And that reliability is what turns a one-time guest into a loyal, long-term partner. Which brings us to our final big takeaway. When you do it right, when you define responsibilities, anticipate risks, and communicate openly, you transform a simple piece of paper into a true strategic asset for your business. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about as you move forward in your careers. The next time you sit down to negotiate, ask yourself, are you just creating a document, or are you building the very blueprint for a successful, profitable, and long-lasting partnership? Thank you.